I spoke to Pauline last night. She told the Senate yesterday morning, and I quote, "You have no business being a member of this Parliament unless you are always acting in the interest of Australia and all its people," unquote. Now, she pointed out that the object of the Offshore Petroleum and Greenhouse Gas Storage Act was to, in the words of the Act, ensure that the exploitation of these natural resources is for the benefit of the Australian community, unquote. Put simply, with thousands of households struggling with some of the biggest energy bills in the world, where our domestic prices are higher than international prices, and where we've got more gas resources than any other country in the world, but we export it, and she called it the Great Australian Gas Rip-Off, and wanted the Act amended to increase the domestic supply of natural gas at a fair price. The Coalition and the government voted against. Actually, the Labor government weren't even in the House to hear the speech. But she made the very valid point that foreign multinationals see us as, quote, little more than a cheap dirt mine. She alluded to our national anthem, which recognises our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. She made the valid point that we have some of the world's largest reserves of aluminium, uranium, gold, copper and coal, and she made the point that Norway, with a population of fewer than 6 million, sits next to the resource-rich North Sea, where, quote, the country's leaders decided long ago to make sure Norway's people, who own these resources, benefit from their extraction and sale. As a result, she said, Norway now has the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, with a value approximating 2 trillion Aussie dollars, more than 350,000 for every person in Norway. Well, here we are, we're in massive debt, some of the highest energy prices in the world, a public health system which can't cope. The rental crisis is staggeringly bad. As Judith Sloan writes today, hardly a day passes when there isn't a story about a stressed family or individual unable to find rental accommodation. So if, as the headlines suggest, an economic reality check is looming for Treasurer Chalmers, and if, as the headlines today say, our economic outlook for the next year is not strong, and if, as Dr Chalmers says, the budget on October 25 will not provide much cost of living support, how then does the government, and indeed the opposition, answer Pauline Hanson's challenge in the Parliament yesterday? In the North West Shelf, they export more than $80,000 million of gas, our gas, 80 billion. Australians own the gas. You own it. I own it. We get a piddling 300 million in return from 80,000 billion. And if our LNG exports continue to climb in volume, foreign-owned multinationals get richer and richer. Why do we have a shortfall in domestic supplies? Why are foreign-owned multinationals sitting on proven reserves of gas which could provide Australians with reliable energy for decades to come? Pauline Hanson asked all these questions yesterday. More importantly, are these foreign-owned companies exploiting our resources and laughing at us? If we have this crisis where health, the NDIS, aged care, defence and retiring the debt are going to make big demands on our economy, why does ExxonMobil Australia boast revenue from 2014 to 2019 of 56 billion and pay no tax? According to Pauline Hanson yesterday in the Senate, Chevron Australia Holdings, 28 billion in revenue over 5 years, no tax. When these resources belong to you and I, to the Australian people. The Pauline Hanson amendment tried to correct this ludicrous state of affairs. The Labor Party weren't even in the Senate and the Coalition voted against. Where then does the Pauline Hanson challenge stand? When she rightly asks of every parliamentarian, quote, you have no business being a member of this Parliament unless you're always acting in the interests of Australia and all its people, unquote. It is clear in relation to our resources, no one in government is meeting that criterion.